stream today. It's good to be back. I was gone all last week for a little bit of travel, and I was unable to stream. So I'm feeling a little bit rusty today, but I'm looking forward to getting back into it. Looking forward to talking to you, answering questions, doing some code, just hanging out. It's going to be great. So let's go ahead and get started. This is episode 12, and I am back from Europe. Yes, we'll talk about Europe a little bit. This is my first trip ever to Europe. First trip outside of North America, I think. Unless you count the Caribbean as not being North America. Anyway, and then I think I'm going to try to dive into a little bit of unit testing inside of the EFCore provider I'm working on. Don't really have much prepared for that, so this could be interesting. We'll see how this goes. All right. Give my normal shouts out here to the Live Coders team. This is a team of people on Twitch, of which I am one of them on the team. And everybody on this channel, we're showing an ad right now. Terrific. Everyone on this channel, sorry, not on this channel, on this team is on Twitch, and they do live coding on Twitch. So all kinds of different types of coding, all kinds of different projects, but they're all doing some sort of coding or technology building, something like that. So you can see a list here, and this list is getting longer all the time. I believe it was started by C# Fritz right here. You can see the channel there, and I'm also on the list. Gosh, I'm near the top here. Codephobia is also streaming right now. You might want to check out Codephobia. That's who's on here right now. It looks like he's doing some sort of cool mapping sort of project. Interesting. Ed Charbonneau, great. Codebase Alpha. I want to shout out to Dev Chatter. It's a channel you should definitely check out. And Brandonius. I don't know if he's on this list or if it's just Dev Chatter. But last time I was streaming, they rated me, which was kind of interesting. I've never been rated before, so that was fun. Check out Dev Chatter for sure. I know Dev Chatter is working on some stuff to help people find live coders that would be interested. What technology you're interested in. Find a live coder that kind of matches up with that, so you don't have to sift through this entire list. That sort of thing, because this list is getting longer all the time. But with that in mind, I also want to shout out to the awesome developer streaming list. Oh, and I've got Karnak working here, so you can see the keyboard shortcuts I'm using. All right. Remind me later on that one. So this is a GitHub repo. It's just a big text file, basically, of a lot of people who are streaming, not necessarily on Twitch only. Could be YouTube, Mixer, Periscope, whatever else. They're all streaming, and you can just do a quick Control F here to find different topics that these people are streaming about. So I always like to search for data, because that's something I do a lot on this stream, is I talk about databases. So you can see some of these names that I've seen here before showing up again on the search. But yeah, nothing new here. Looks like this list hasn't been updated in 5 months. So anyway, if you're doing live streaming, live coding, get yourself added to this list. GitHub.com/BNB/awesome developer streams. But you can go in here and find people who are, if you want to learn about C#, you want to learn about JavaScript, you can just do a Control F and see, okay, a lot of JavaScript on there. You can see who's doing anything about security. Yeah, so some people are writing about streaming about security issues, stuff like that. So you can do a Control F. Maybe Rust is your thing, or Ruby, or Python, or something. You can do a search here and find someone who's streaming. So we'll just pick one here at random. We can see David Poindexter here. He's doing some Node, some JavaScript. He's streaming on Twitch. Not everyone is on Twitch, but a lot of them are, of course. We keep scrolling on here. A lot on Twitch. Yeah, there's a few on YouTube, I think. Yeah, so there's YouTube, and I don't know, maybe it's someone Mixer. Yep, some Mixer as well. So, hey, there's Jeff Fritz on Twitch and Mixer. All right, so definitely check out that list. I'm on there as well. Awesome developers streaming list. All right, what else we got? Yeah, just another couple links. You can see it at the bottom of the screen there as well. I post all my live streams to YouTube. They're on Twitch as well, but I think Twitch only keeps them for 30 days, so they get posted on YouTube for the long run. All my highlight clips as well, they get posted over there to YouTube. bit.ly/GrovesTube. If you want to check out the archives, see what's going on, see all the stuff we've covered already. Check out those videos. And something I'm trying, kind of experimenting with right now is some fun merch. I created this basically for myself because I want to get this. I want to get a coffee mug like this. But I've got coffee mugs and T-shirts with these ampersand names on them. I don't know if I'll stick with Cafe Press. I also applied to the Amazon merch program, so I don't know. It's really just kind of for my own benefit to buy something like that for myself, have it around. And if you're interested, if you think it's an interesting design, check it out, let me know. Not trying to make any serious money off of that. All right. So, I was gone last week. Oh, I'm getting some errors about dropped frames. 11%, 9% dropped frames. Well, that doesn't seem to be, that's not a good thing. Keep an eye on that. Seems to be fine right now. The percentage is going down of dropped frames, so yeah. All right, so last week I was in Europe. I went there with my employer for a conference. We were a sponsor of the KubeCon conference in EMEA. EMEA is, I think it is, it's an abbreviation, and hopefully I get this right. I think it's Europe, Middle East, and Asia. I think that's right. Or no, sorry, wrong, not Asia, Africa. Europe, Middle East, Africa. So it's that big swath of a few time zones. It's a name of a region. This is if you've not seen the EMEA term before, this is something I learned like in the last 3 years. It's a term for that sort of area, all lumped into one. So KubeCon had a conference. They called it KubeCon EMEA. KubeCon has one in, I believe they have one in North America, a couple other places maybe. But this is the first KubeCon I went to. This is the first conference. This is the first a lot of things. This is the first time I left North America, I believe. And I've been to some islands in the Caribbean. I think those count as North America. First time I've flown over the Atlantic. Let's just say that. And first time I was in Barcelona, obviously. First time I was in Spain. I've actually been studying Spanish this year. It's one of my New Year's resolutions. So I was kind of nervous/excited to try out some of my Spanish that I've been learning this year. And what I learned was that I have a long way to go before I can comfortably speak Spanish with another person. Someone who speaks their language natively is speaking it much faster than I can really parse. I'm sure it works the same way in reverse. And the other thing is in Barcelona, they speak Spanish, yes, but they also speak another language, I believe it's called Catalan or something like that, which is kind of a mixture of, I don't want to be insulting here, but from what I can tell, it's a sort of a mixture of Spanish and French because it's in a region that's near France, so you get a little bit of mixture of languages there. So, like you go to the airport, the signs are in 3 different languages. They're in English, thankfully. They're in Spanish, and they're in that other language, Catalan, or hopefully I'm saying it right. Yes, Catalan. Yeah, and it's a Romance language, and it's kind of a little bit like Spanish. So it wasn't impossible for me to understand a sign in Catalan, for instance. So that was kind of interesting. I didn't spend a lot of time exploring the city because I was working at the conference, and I was really, really tired after a long day working at the conference. So I didn't do a lot of tour stuff. A couple of things I noticed that were different in Barcelona than in say, like in some of the bigger cities here I've been to in the United States. A lot of motorbikes everywhere. A lot of them. In the, Europe's much older cities in Europe, right? So the streets aren't necessarily designed for motor vehicles. So it's sometimes more convenient to ride around the motorbikes, what it seems like. I'm not a huge fan of Spanish cuisine just because of some of the main ingredients don't agree with me. But I was able to try a food there called jamón, which is a type of like a cured meat, like a deli sliced meat sort of thing. It was fine. It's just like it's like a sort of a ham sort of thing. One other little anecdote here before we get started. One thing I like to do when I travel for conferences is I like to, when I first arrive, I like to hit a grocery store to get some snacks and water and stuff, because at the conferences and at the hotels and the restaurants, it tends to be pretty pricey, especially in touristy areas. So I like to find a convenience store, a grocery store, and get some provisions for the week, if you will. So I went to a grocery store. It looks like a relatively big chain. I think it's a European chain, Carrefour, something like that. I'm not sure if I'm saying it right. But it, kind of reminded me of a Kroger or a Walmart sort of thing. But one thing that was different there. Hey, open OPEX 81DE. Thank you for the follow. Appreciate you stopping by and checking out the stream. Listening to my Europe stories. We're going to get to the code here in a bit. But so anyway, I go to the drinks aisle. I want to buy some water, some bottled water. So there's a bunch of the bulk packs, like 4 bottles of water, 8 bottles of water, 6 packs of Coke, 8 packs of Coke, that sort of thing. And it seemed a little strange to me that the prices, it's all in euros. So I have a rough idea of what the prices mean in terms of American dollars, but it seemed very low. So like underneath the bottles of water, for instance, it said 50 cents or 70 cents. And it was a 4-pack of water. And that seemed, oh, hey, Calvin Allen, thanks for stopping in. Mr. Allen, congratulations on your work anniversary, by the way. I saw your tweet storm yesterday, and yeah, that's great. I'm happy for you, man. I'm glad things are working out. Anyway, so it seemed a little cheap. So it seemed especially cheap. So I kind of assumed that it was a per bottle price, even though the bottles were all packaged together in like a 4-pack, for instance. I bought a 4-pack of bottles of water. So I assumed it was, okay, this is a price per bottle, so I'll have to buy all 4 bottles. But one thing I noticed that was strange was that, here in the States, if you go to a Walmart or a Sam's Club or something, you see the big bulk pack of bottled water. And that's what you buy. You buy the big bulk pack of the bottled water. But it seemed like there were a lot of packages on the shelves that were missing bottles or missing cans. So it was like a 6-pack that had like 3 cans removed, or an 8-pack of water that had 2 bottles removed. I was like, that seems kind of strange. But anyway, I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just a tourist here. I'm just a guest. So I picked up a 4-pack and I took it to the scanner, self-scanner, because I kind of wanted to minimize the awkward conversation. I don't know if the cashier speaks English or if I'm going to be able to get by with my terrible Spanish. So I go and I scan the 4-pack on the self-scanner, beep, and I get an error message on the screen, and it's in Spanish. I think it's in Spanish. I'm better at reading Spanish than I am at speaking it or listening to it. So I kind of understand that it says, there was a problem scanning your item. Please wait for an attendant. I'm like, oh no, I got to talk with an attendant. So the attendant comes over, and I'm trying to figure out how to express what's going on here. But she seems to know what the problem is. basically the idea is that I scanned the package when I should have been scanning the individual bottle. So she has a very annoyed face, but she's, I don't know, maybe she's having a bad day, or maybe she's just like, oh, this American doesn't know what's going on. So she beep 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 on the machine, and she pulls out the one bottle, scans it, and then hits times 4. So apparently, even though they're all packaged together in one big bulk case, everything is priced and sold individually in this store. So I thought that was very something that was very different that I noticed in that grocery store. So anyway, it's something to keep in mind if you're ever in Europe and going to a Carrefour and you want to buy some bottled water. All right. Yes, Calvin Allen came out of nowhere. Once I got started, just kept going. I rolled it up and blogged it because I realized how terrible it is to read those things. I'm not a big fan of the tweet threads, but yeah, if you want to post a link to that blog post, Calvin, please go right ahead. Most of our bundles have labels, right? Not intended for individual resale. I guess so. I never really thought about it. It's just something I've just sort of always assumed, that if it's all packaged together, you buy the whole thing. And so on a shelf in an American grocery store, you might see individual bottles, and you might see like a big 20-pack or something of water. So on the Carrefour shelves, it's all the same thing. So anyway, I thought that was a little out of the ordinary. Other than that, the weather was really nice in Barcelona. I think just about everyone I dealt with was very friendly. The taxi drivers were very nice. Most of them knew enough English to get by. I knew enough Spanish to communicate with them, tell them, where I want to go, things like that. So I think I did okay. The flight there and back, those were long flights. Those were long flights for me. I'm a big guy. I don't fit well in airplanes, but I managed to survive. So, okay. Next up, TwitchBot. I don't know if you've noticed it already, but it's already on. It's been logging some messages from 3 messages from Calvin, and so those are going into my Couchbase database. And again, don't really have an idea what I want to do with this data right now, but all I've got right now is the leaderboard. I've got one SQL query here to give me a leaderboard of data, and you can see Calvin is still at the top there with 85 total chat messages. And Surly Dev, who I haven't seen in a while, number 2, and Coral is slowly climbing up the list there. Again, I'm not trying to encourage you to spam the channel with chat messages. You don't get anything for this leaderboard, but I'm just trying to show off that I wrote a TwitchBot, puts data in Couchbase, and query that data. That's really it. And if you have ideas for that, maybe somewhere down the road we'll do something with that data. So that TwitchBot is on. TwitchBot is on. It's also open source. It's on GitHub. Not that it's anything particularly fancy, but it's out there, recording messages right now. All right. Bach for Life. Hi, Matt. How's it going today? Oh, it's going okay. Bach for Life, how is it going with you? Are you just chatting that to get on the leaderboard? Oh, no, you've already been on the leaderboard. So, hey, thanks for stopping by. Thanks for coming in and joining us, hang out a little bit. Okay, so what I thought I'd do with Entity Framework is last episode I'll go to the example project here. I was just doing a very, very simple example app here to create an Entity Framework context, add a new blog to it, and save the changes. And that actually works, kinda. If you look here at the buckets, there's nothing in there right now. Mostly just want to say hello, but climbing a leaderboard sounds fun too. I mean, it kind of is fun, but like I said, you don't get anything for being in the top of the leaderboard other than, I don't know, the admiration of somebody. I don't know. Maybe nobody. I'm drinking soda today because I'm out of coffee, and I'm going on vacation here soon. I didn't really feel like buying any coffee, so I'm back on the soda for my caffeine delivery. Anyway, just to review, I'm actually trying to build an entity framework provider for Couchbase. I'm not trying to write an application to use the entity framework. I'm just trying to build the entity framework provider itself. So there's entity framework provider for SQL Server, for Cosmos DB, for MySQL, Postgres, etc., etc. I'm trying to build one for Couchbase. And by build one, I mean I'm trying to get one started. So I think it's far too much of a task for one person to take on themselves in a reasonable amount of time. So Calvin with the subscription. Thank you very much for that, Calvin. Appreciate that. And you get a little graphic there. That's how I imagine people who subscribe to my channel. They do so by accident, but just bang on the keyboard. So who don't actually subscribe to me, right? So anyway, thank you for that subscription, Calvin. All right. So this is just a real basic example app I've got going, and the only thing I've implemented right now is the ability to let's see, it's Calvin. No, you just get my free one. Yeah, right. Yeah. So we're both Amazon Prime, so we get a free subscription every month, I think, something like that. I gave mine to the Michael Jolly, I believe, because he plays a live guitar song for all his subscribers. So that's who I gave it to. Maybe I'll give it to someone else next month, like Carrie Payette or something like that. Anyway, so all I've done so far with this provider is a very, very basic add functionality. So all you can do with this provider right now is add data to it. It does work, though. I think if I give it a try here. See, Karnak is working today. Hasn't crashed yet. That's always good. Okay, so I just added a document there, and it should show up in this EF test bucket. There it is. It's not exactly what I want it to look like yet, but it is actually showing up. So we're making some tiny progress. So what I thought I'd do before we get much farther is try to get a handle on the unit tests. Now, what I did originally was I just basically copied and pasted the Cosmos provider because it's a document database. It's got some similarities with Couchbase, so I thought it'd be a good place to start. And I also copied and pasted the tests that came with that, which I'm guessing I'm going to throw out much of them or a lot of it. I don't know yet. But I thought we would take a look at some of those tests today. So one of the things I did, and if we go back to this data here, is it this one I wanted to go? ID value generator. So this is some code that actually generates the ID, the key for the document. And if you look at a document in Couchbase, this is the key up here. In Cosmos, it's actually a field called ID, but in Couchbase, it's outside the data. It's up here as the key. And you can create, I believe, compound keys with ID value generator. I haven't actually tried this yet. But what it does is it will take this entry. So this is an object that tracks the entity, the changes you're made to it, and what operations you're trying to perform on it. And it's going to then use the metadata to find the primary key of the entity. And this stuff right here, this is all, this ID value generator is inside the Couchbase provider, but these methods being used here, this class, is all in the entity framework core library itself. So I'm not making any changes to entity entry. I might make changes to this class, ID value generator. So it's going to find the primary key, and that could be more than one property, make up the primary key. I'm not exactly sure how you notate that. And then it's going to append them. For each property, it's going to append that to this string builder, getting the value of each of those properties. And it puts, so in Cosmos' case, it was putting a pipe in there. With Couchbase, what we see more often is this : so I was going to append : and the last thing to do is going to remove any trailing : there, the last two characters, and then return that string. So that's all it does. And then this part right here, I'm not really sure what's going on here. This is a private method it's replacing a pipe with this slash pipe. I'm not really sure why or what that means. And then if it's a string, it does that. If it's enumerable, it loops through all of them and does a similar thing. And then by default, it's going to just call toString to do that. So I'm not really sure the differences there, but I wanted to go over and look at the tests that came with Cosmos and try to make sense of these. So for ID value generator, there's only one test, and it's using XUnit for this. That's why you see fact here. And the only test is that generated IDs do not clash. So this is the only test I could really find, although we could probably do a search to see if this is used anywhere else in tests. So I'm going to find usages. It's only used in one place, period, which is the store key convention. So that's interesting. It's not even being used in this test here. Directly, anyway. Okay, so let's walk through this. So we've got these two sort of just dummy test classes here, blog and post. All right, and the first thing we're doing is we're building up a model. So Couchbase test helpers, and again, this used to be Cosmos test helpers, .instance, .create convention builder. So what does .instance do? Okay, so this is just sort of a helper function. I remember commenting this part out. Use provider options. Okay, because we actually changed the options builder to use Couchbase because it's different than Cosmos. It's not using it's a connection string and an auth token and a collection name. It's using a client configuration, an authenticator, and a bucket name. Right, so this test environment is interesting. So I haven't changed this yet, but maybe we can call this client configuration. Haven't created that yet. And test environment dot, this will be, what do I call this one? Authenticator. Because I'm guessing this test environment stuff is going to be used in a lot of other tests. And this is actually in the tests library, so I'm assuming this is some kind of unit test. And then finally the bucket, which was hard-coded there before, so I'll just hard-code it here again, EF test. Is that the name of my bucket? Yes, EF test. Okay, so let's go over to test environment and see what we got here. This is pulling from a config. This config.json. Okay, interesting. So inside tests. Okay, this is test environment. This is interesting. It's actually calling it from functional tests. And config.json is right here. Okay. Interesting. So, I don't know what this auth token is, but we're basically going to ditch those. And this is test.couchbase. So the SQL is on there because Cosmos has a number of different APIs, and one of them is SQL. With Couchbase, there's not the concept of that. So I'm just going to take off the SQL part. It's interesting that it's also looking for a config.test file, but that one's not checked into the code base. That's fine. All right, so so here we can put servers. I think that's probably fine. Whoops. And that can be an array, but I only have one locally, so we'll just keep it like that. And then username, administrator, password. That should be enough to populate this test environment. And so, default connection, public static, and so it's not going to be default connection. It's going to be client configuration, right? And this is client configuration. I'm just going to make this a full getter for now. This will be new client configuration. And where servers equals config, and what did I call it? Servers. Now that's not going to work because this is it as it's trying to, so I want a list of URIs, and config servers is not that. Config servers is a string. Okay, so, but I want this to be, at very least, an array. So how do I actually, what is this config? Is there a config dot, like, get as array or something? Gets the value of the specified key and converts it to type T. Okay, so maybe that's what I want. Config string, string array, and something like this. Okay. Then I can say servers equals config servers dot select, and this is going to be new URI of C. What doesn't it like here? Because can't convert. Okay, so this needs to be to array. Will that do the trick? Oh no, it needs to be to list. To list. That should do it. Okay. Config servers. I'll call it raw, I guess, and then servers URIs equals that. And so put this right here. Config servers raw. Okay. So what we're doing here is we're pulling this, and hopefully this works. Hopefully the test will bear this out. We're pulling the array of strings here. I've only one item in here, but it could be multiple, so an array of strings into a string array. And then we're taking that string array, and we're using link to iterate through each one and turn it into URIs, because that's what the client configuration needs, is URIs. We're putting it right there. Okay, good. So we can get rid of that. And the next thing I want, we can get rid of this one, is, so this should working authenticator. Public authenticator. Authenticator. This will just be another get. It can be a password authenticator. So we can say username equals config. In this case, I think I just use Couchbase :SQL username. To get the username and password. And then all I need to do is return new password authenticator using username, password. Why doesn't it like this? Cannot, oh, this needs to be static. Okay. Looks good, I guess. All right, so the primary key. So that's where was I? Back here. So I gotta come back here a little bit. Find primary. It says metadata. Is that where it was? No. Find primary key. Is that right? How did I get over to test environment? Oh, it was here. Right. Yes. Test environment. So that's going to create convention builder. So anything different about this? This is another test helper. This is going to create context services. Yeah, I don't know about any of that. So I guess I can just try this test and see what happens. Set a breakpoint on it. I'm using a ReSharper here to run tests. And I don't know if ReSharper supports that out of the box. I might have had to download a plugin for that, a ReSharper plugin. Okay, test environment does not contain a definition. Oh, no, I might have broken some other stuff. Let's just build this and see what happens. Okay, so I didn't break much. Just more commenting out. Okay, let's try it again. I'm a big fan of the ReSharper test runner. I've been using it for a long, long time. Okay. All right, so model builder, is that going to succeed? It does not. So it doesn't like something here. So this apparently didn't work. Let's try this in immediate. Oh, it's probably not servers. It's probably, well, Couchbase servers? Test Couchbase servers. Okay. What is in config? So we got config Couchbase is null. So it doesn't like that. If I just do servers, everything's null. Why doesn't it like it here? Username? Null, null, null. Everything's null. So why isn't it getting this config.json here? It's in a static constructor, so this should be getting the test::couchbase section. Oh, because I didn't take it off in there. That's why. Okie doke. Back to here. Run this again. Okay. I don't think we're actually going to hit the database. So I'm not sure why we're doing all this. Oh, that's not working either. Okay. Config username. So I found something there. Config servers. Config servers is null. Well, that's not right. There's definitely something. So that's still null. Why doesn't it like that? What if I take out this and just say dynamic? Is it going to find anything? No. So that's clearly not the right thing to use there. But what is the right thing to use? Because if I've put in servers here, it returns a null. But username and password it finds. Okay. So I'm going to have to probably look up the iConfiguration documentation here. And I don't know if I can look up like array, arrays. Okay, well, this looks like it. In app settings on JSON, I have my array. Yep, looks like kind of what I'm doing. You want to pick value of the first item. Because, okay, if you want to pick value of an entire array, ideally you should consider using options pattern. I don't know if I necessarily need to do that for testing just yet. You know, I've been here before. I voted this one up. So I've clearly run into this problem before. All right, well, let's try get section, I guess. Get section servers, like that. It says values null. Can I do it as enumerable? Enumerable. Oh, that's not very helpful. To list. So it says size 2. That does not. It's not really what I'm looking for. Test the couchbase server 0. Is that what I want? No, that's not doing it. Servers. Seemed like I was close here. Get section servers, but it's not really a section. That's the thing. It's just an array. Get section.get. Get section, get children. And it seems like I'm supposed to bring in this. This is what I did before. I mean, another option, just to work around it for now. Dr. Sajima. Hi, I'm doing great, Dr. Sajima. Thanks for stopping in. Working on a little bit of entity framework provider stuff here. Trying to get a handle on these tests. How are you doing? All right, so I'm going to... Is that right? I think this is wrong too. And it shouldn't be SQL anyway. So servers equals, this is going to be new. I'm all right, just woke up not too long ago. Wow. The best part of waking up is a little bit of entity framework. config, and I'm just going to call it server, because there's just one of them. Okay, we can refactor this to make it a little nicer. In your cup of tea. Oh, Calvin. Calvin. Do not make jokes like that if you want to keep your mod privileges. I don't know what that means. I don't code, though I assume it was sarcasm. Dr. Sajima, if you don't code, I'm curious why you're in a streaming live code Twitch channel. I appreciate you dropping in, and I'm happy that you're here, but just kind of curious about your motivation. Okay, that seems to work. Model builder. I've got this test environment, so let's just see what happens. Can I do this? Test environment dot configuration. Does that work? Yeah, it does. It does work. Okay, so we're making some progress here. All right, so model builder dot entity has key. Oh, and this is specifying that it has a compound key, I guess. Okay, so I find that people that code are significantly less likely to be people I don't get along with. People that code are significantly less likely to be people I don't get along with. That was a tough sentence to diagram. So are you saying that people who, you like people who are code? You get along well with people who are code? You get along well with people who code. Well, that's good. Model builder finalized model. This is probably, again, more entity framework stuff. Okay, so it's interesting. Not always, but more often than not. Okay, I understand. Not everyone who code you get along with. That makes sense. Yes. But more often than not is the case. Well, that's cool. That's cool. Have you thought about doing any coding yourself? Blog ID property. So this is okay, and post ID property, fine. So it's creating a new hash set here. And I assume it's using hash set because it doesn't want duplicates, because we're putting it in 5 times, but the test only expects 4. So right now it's empty. And after I do this, we've got one ID in there of 1::1, which I think is what I want. If I do this again, it should not add it, so it count should still be 1. I've considered it, but it's backlog. I'm focused on my own psychological studies for the time being. Okay, cool, you're a psychologist. Very interesting. Or at least you study psychology. I don't know if that makes you a psychologist or not, but very cool. IDs 1:1. So that's interesting. I think this test is going to fail because we only have 1 in there right now and it expects 4. So, okay, so let's put this weird slash pipe in there. I don't know why. Oh, okay, I think I understand why it's doing this. It's like escaping the pipe. Weird. I'm not a psychologist. I'm a mental health counselor in my 12th year of a psychology degree. Psychology is the end goal, though. Okay. Is that the normal period of time for a psychology degree? Or is it just something that, you've been sort of working with off and on? I literally have no idea. I know doctors, they take forever in school, so 12 years, that might be par for the course for a psychology degree. Or it could just be you are very busy, and your job as a mental health counselor, and haven't, aren't going to school full time or that sort of thing. So I guess it's escaping them. That's what I think is going on here. Yeah, so like if pipe was actually part of my key for some reason, I think that should be a different test though, honestly. So this test is going to fail because it doesn't match. Yeah, expected 4, it's actually 3. Yeah, I think I know why, because so most PhD students tend to be in university for more than a decade, I believe. Woo. Yowza. I've always kind of it's not really a goal of mine, at least not yet, but I've got a master's degree, and I've always thought, well, maybe I should at some point go and pick up a doctorate in something. Now I know, like for medical doctors and psychologists, it's probably a whole different thing than like a doctorate in computer science, which is probably what I would go for, right? But if getting a doctorate in computer science takes a decade, then I don't think I'm interested in that. I don't know if there's much benefit to me for getting a doctorate anyway. For the kind of work that I do and I'm interested in, but yeah, that's pretty crazy. It's been so much time. It takes a while. However, being able to use my master's for work makes it doable. Okay, that's cool. Okay, so what I think's happening here is that the way the entity provider in Cosmos works, every degree took twice as long as the previous. So that's not been my experience so far. My bachelor's degree took me about 5 years. I started in high school, so 5 years total. My master's degree took about just over 2 years. So that was less time, obviously. But I'm in a completely different field. All right, I'm in computer science, and then it was an MBA. It was a business administration master's. So my expectation, and this could be completely off base, is that a computer science doctorate would take 2-ish years, give or take. They could be completely off base there, but it's totally different, right, than psychology and medical. So no idea. Anyway, what I think is supposed to be happening is it's going to. In this case, Cosmos and the frame provider would create a key like this. Down here, it would also be like this, and down here it would be this. Calvin, I've always considered going back as well, but I only have an associate's degree, so I want to get my bachelor. Oh, really? I thought you had a bachelor for some reason. But at this point, I might just be wasting money. That's interesting, Calvin. Yeah. I mean, you've been a computer programming professional for a long time. I don't know if a bachelor's would really give you anything now that your work experience doesn't give you 10 times over. I guess the only thing would be if you wanted to go into like a profession that required a bachelor's degree, like a teaching job or something like that. I don't know if you're interested in that sort of thing. So this is what I think Cosmos would be expecting here, and this would be some sort of weird escapee deal, like that. Like this. So that. And then being a hash set, it would be okay. This is the same as this one. Now, however, the way I've done it in Couchbase, and maybe I want to rethink this, is that I don't have this part on there. And so maybe I'm just thinking about keys in a different way that the Cosmos Entity Frame Provider is, because they're putting a discriminator in the key as well as in the actual document. Well, I certainly wouldn't want a post to have the same ID like the as the same ID as a blog. That doesn't make sense. But generally speaking, when working with Couchbase, and this may be different for Entity Frame Provider, but you generally create the key yourself. So it may be a GUID, it may be blog colon GUID or blog colon 1, or it may not be. It may be something different. So this is probably a pretty important decision to make, and whatever decision I make, it may end up being the wrong one. It may not be relevant, but I think it's important to document that decision here in a test. And I kind of had to divine that from this test, Cosmos. It would be better to be more explicit about that. Was that test here? And the other thing I think is going on is that, oh yeah, I'm specifying these explicitly. Yeah, so it's not generating them or anything like that. What would happen if it did generate them? Okay. Let's not go down that rabbit hole. Okay. So the whole point of this test is to see that generated IDs do not clash. But so the IDs are generated in the sense that they are generated based on the values of these keys. Now, I'm guessing it's... So how is it determining that these are both keys? Is it because they have ID on the end? If that's the case, then I can do a search for this string and probably find something. No, doesn't seem to be up. Oh, right here. I'm saying it has the key. And the key is this expression. Okay, got it. Okay. Okay, all right. So, what sort of test should I write here? And the other thing is this pipe deal. That needs to be, basically I don't need the pipe deal. And there's no test around this enumerable stuff either. Or is this we could, I don't know. Is that what this is testing, the enumerable? I don't think so. Let's try it. Yeah, I kind of feel the same way about the doctorate being, well, I don't want to say wasted money, because there is I think inherent value in education beyond just what you can put on a resume and use to find work or get a job or things like that, right? I believe there is some inherent value to just taking classes and learning. And let's not forget the value of being able to call yourself Dr. Allen, or Calvin Allen, PhD. Right? The cocktail party value of it, right? All right, so this is 1. This just goes to default because it's integer. Okay, fine. This is also integer, so this is also going to go to default. This one is also integer. Okay, we're still in love integer land here. Okay, here's actually string. I would love to teach, but I don't know if I would ever go for a PhD. So I don't. So I've actually taught at a college. I didn't need a PhD for it. The college I taught at, they only required me to have a master's. However, I was part-time adjunct, so like a full-time professor might be a stricter requirement. I don't know for sure. And then for teaching like elementary school or something, I think generally you just need a bachelor's, but you also need some sort of teaching certificate. Unless you're a substitute teacher, then I think you don't need a teaching certificate. I think a bachelor's is probably good enough. I am completely just not sure of any of this. So that's my general impression, though. I mean, and the weird thing is, like, the teaching job that I got, I'll see. I wouldn't want full-time. A lot of my instructors were adjunct, and they were the best ones I ever had. Oh, very interesting. The thing with being an adjunct professor, I don't know if I was necessarily good at it. I'm not going to go that far and say I was a good professor, but I was teaching while I was working, as a job as a developer. I was teaching very, very basic web development, but I was also working at the same time. So if a student had a question, certain questions where it's like, well, here's the textbook answer, but here's the real life answer, right? And an adjunct professor, I think, can probably answer those real life questions a little better than. And this is a generality. I'm not trying to dump on full-time professors here, but can probably answer those questions a little bit better than a full-time professor, right? I don't know, maybe. Again, I don't know if I was necessarily good at it, but a good adjunct professor would probably be able to say, here is what the textbook tells you, here's what the curriculum will tell you, but in reality, here's what is actually going to be the case. All right, so property value 1. So in this case, it's going to say string value, and it's going to try to escape the pipey thing because they wouldn't have the pipey thing in integer necessarily, but just in case they do it anyway. Okay, property value 1, so same thing here. Yeah, so I'm not seeing any enumerables being tested. Yeah, so it might be useful to put enumerable test in here. So all this is doing is testing IDs don't clash. It's not really testing anything else, like what the ID actually is. So maybe test what the ID actually is. And test what the ID actually is, and with discriminator or not, etc. Enumerable key test. So I don't remember. So like when I went to my bachelor's degree, I'm sure some of my teachers were adjunct, and actually one of the professors I remember him being really good. I think he was a professor emeritus. So kind of a similar thing where he was part-time, but he was retired. So a little different perspective there, I guess. I think it's good to have a nice mix of different professors, right? You have some that are adjunct, some that are emeritus, some that are full-time, some that are all about the textbook and some that are all about real-world applications. It's good to have a variety of those sorts of things. And that's kind of my point about the education itself. Not the end certificate, not the degree, but the education itself being just sort of inherently valuable, inherently enriching, regardless of whether or not it affects your job interview or your job prospects or anything like that. Just enriching yourself. Now, I say that as from a position of someone who hasn't. I've been fairly fortunate about the costs of my education, right? So, uh, it's easy for me to say, oh yeah, it was super enriching for me to take those master's degree classes because I didn't have to actually, work for the university. I didn't pay a lot of the costs, right? Whereas if I had to actually pay the cost of the tuition and bear that burden, maybe I'd have a different opinion on the inherent value of a degree. So I enrich myself by watching live streamers. That's another good way to enrich yourself. There's lots of ways to enrich yourself, right? Podcasts. Podcast is another good way to enrich yourself. Speaking of podcasts, Calvin, when is our next podcast episode coming out? The big build episode. You still have 6 figures in student loan debt, hence why I'm not in a hurry to go back. Yeah, I would, yeah. I don't think I would worry too much about going back to school when you have 6 figures in debt right now. Okay, so let's just let's write a test here. Generated ID includes values of all keys. Delimited. And that's after paying off 75 grand. Okay, so I can just do this part of it right here. And this part, finalize and this. And I don't need to do a whole hash set thing. I'm curious though, what is this attribute doing right here? What is that? That's weird syntax, isn't it? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I want to assert that they are equal key, and no idea what that means. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I don't understand. So this is arrange. This is my act. I don't think I've seen syntax like that before. Where you have, what is this? Blog property, that is some sort of attribute right now. I property represents a scalar property of an entity. Okay. But what is this? What is that doing? I want to comment that out and see what happens. That's a weird one. I've seen a lot of C# and a lot of attributes in my life. Oh, it's bombing, and it's declared on line 47. Yeah, it's declared right here. The error I'm getting is cannot convert type internal entity entry to string. Is that some kind of weird cast? Well, this is the cast right here. Well, let's just debug through this, see what's going on. I learned something new about C# today. Alright, so we're getting our model builder, fine. Creating our entity, you're specifying the keys, finalize the model. Okay, now we do this thing here. Model, find entity type of blog, which I put in there. Find the property ID. So it found that. Okay. And so if I do this part right here, what does that return? Create internal. I've got my thing here. So it creates an internal entry. Fine. Okay. And what is blog ID property? Shadow required alternate key. Huh. I don't know what that business is. If I get the key, it's going to be what I expect. Oh, it's in backwards order, though. Huh. Why is that in that order? I don't know what this is. I'm just going to put a note that I have no idea what that is. It's doing something. Is this some way that I can... I don't know. Like, I can identify a property. Is this some sort of reflection thing? I can identify a property and then say... Oh, wait a second. Is this a string? No, interface. I was going to say, maybe this isn't an attribute. Maybe it's like a... Maybe it's like that. Where it's like a... That actually might be the case, right? This is not an attribute, but it's actually an indexer, right? Like a dictionary. That's probably what this is. Yeah, an indexer. I think that's what's going on here. It looks like a weird attribute because of the spacing, but I think it's indexing it. So this is saying, get the entity, create an entry, get this property off of it, and cast it to a string. Okay, so that's cool. I think I figured this out. All right, but what I haven't figured out is why it's putting these keys in. Oh, because up here I've got the keys in this specific order. So I guess this order matters. So it should be other ID first. Yeah. All right, passing test. Terrific. Okay. Put that up here. All right, and then I also want to test this enumerable thing. I don't know if that's really something that comes up a lot, but generated ID that uses enumerable key. And what is it actually doing? It's just going to iterate through all the values. Should use all values. So it's going to be similar to this test here. No, similar to this test here. I'm going to use code. We got a raid. Oh no. Code Phobia's raiding. Another raid. I guess I got to start raiding somebody because I haven't done a raid yet, but I've been raided twice. Wow. Thank you for the raid, Code Phobia. Thank you for the happy gopher there. The kind gopher. I appreciate you dropping in and checking things out. Yeah.
Bada bing, bada boom.
Appreciate that. And thanks for the follow. Terrific. Well, you caught me right here in the middle of writing some tests for my Entity Framework Couchbase provider for Entity Framework, right? So Entity Framework can talk to multiple databases. Entity Framework Core 3, trying to build a Couchbase provider, trying to start building a Couchbase provider. And Couchbase is a NoSQL database. So I've kind of started with the Cosmos provider. I sort of took that as my starting point, and I'm trying to change it and adapt it to work with Couchbase. And today I thought maybe I'd write some unit tests for that, just to be a little more explicit about what decisions I'm actually making and make sure everything's working how I'd expect. So at this point, we're working on actually generating keys from the entities. And so what I've got here is I've got this blog entity. I'm going to add an enumerable to it. We're going to test the enumerable part of it. Some other key. Anyway, I don't know what else I'm supposed to do during a raid. Do I just what? Am I supposed to do something in a raid? I have no idea. I don't know anything about raids. I need to learn more about raids and figure out how to raid somebody else. Because I feel like it's something that I should be doing to support my my team, my live coders team. Just smile awkwardly. Well, I can do that. I'm talented at that. All right, so the key here I want, instead of those, I'm going to call it some other key. All right, and just use the \raid command and give it a channel name. All right. Is the raid something you do like, I don't know, is it like you just streaming? I'm like, hey, I feel like raiding somebody. Let's go raid Codephobia. Let's go raid Dev Chatter. Just for funsies? Or is it something you do at like the end of your stream? Like, oh, hey, thanks for joining me, everyone. Okay, before we close up, we're going to go raid. When you're finished and stopping yours, you raid. Okay, yep. Raid is something you do at the end to transfer your views elsewhere. Got it. Okay. I understand. Okay. That makes sense. So towards the end of my raid, or end of my stream today, is around noonish. I might finish up a little earlier today. I'd find someone else on the live coders team and say, hey, we're going to go raid them. Try to keep it going, kind of like getting a Katamari going. I like it. It makes sense. Okay. CM Griffing. Thanks for dropping in, CM Griffing. Yeah. I'm squinting because Streamlabs has put your name in a weird color, so it's kind of hard to read. CM Griffing. Okay, so I've got that, so I'm going to do an act. So this is, I know what this is now. I'm going to take that off. And we're not going to do this. We're going to call it some other key and give that a new list. This is getting a little bit unwieldy here. Log entity. Let's just do this. Let's put this in its own line. And we're going to give this a string foo, string of bar, a string of baz. Okay, and then my assert would be that the key is equal to, I don't know, I guess foo bar baz. I'm assuming lists have a defined order when I do that. So is this going to work? Let's find out. So for those still hanging around from the raid, what I generally do on this stream is a lot of C#, .NET. I generally focus on the back-end databases. I write a lot of tests that fail, apparently. What happened there? Did it not compile? The blog, some of the key is a title listing not supported by current database provider. Ah, Okay. Apparently, I can't do that. Is that something that's not supported by current? Okay. I'm kind of confused why enumerable's in here if it's not supported. Or maybe it's just list of strings specifically is not supported. Okay, well, in any case, I think that's a pretty weird situation. Anyway, if you have a enumerable as your key in an object, so I'm not too concerned about that. But we got this one, and you know, IDs do not clash. That's going to be something that I don't know about this one. Because I kind of see what they're going for. They're trying to test that the discriminator ends up in the key, and if it's the same discriminator, then it shouldn't clash. Oh, that's a weird test. So we'll get rid of this one here. So I got to decide, like, do I want my keys to look like this, or do I want them to look like this by default? I'm assuming that, no, yeah. Do I want this to be, do I want the name of the class to be in the key or not? Try to put myself in the developer's shoes here. So if I am over here in looking at my data, and it might help to actually look at like this travel sample here. So you can see this is a set of data that comes with Couchbase, and it kind of does this. It puts airline _10. It doesn't use : : it uses airline _10. So it puts that. This document represents an airline. It puts it there in the key of the document as well. It's not just 10. Let's see. Can is Lupus Blanco. Can is Lupus Blanco. So I think that's some sort of Spanish. Haven't used or come across Couchbase. I've heard of CouchDB. How does Couchbase compare against something like Cassandra or MongoDB? Oh, geez. Well, so I spent all last week in Barcelona answering this exact question. In fact, every time I go to a booth, these are the top 2 questions that I get all the time about Couchbase. Is it the same thing as CouchDB? A. And B, how does it compare to MongoDB? So let's start with the first question there. I could even bring up a slide deck because I get this question so much. All right. How do I want to answer this in the most fun way possible? I'll bring up a slide deck because I have some helpful graphics for this. Let's bring up this one here. All right, so this is a presentation I did for Nomad.js recently. But at the end of my slide decks, I like to put a frequently asked questions slide. These are the questions I get asked all the time. Constantly asked these questions. So the very first one, how is Couchbase different than Mongo? How is Couchbase the same thing as CouchDB? So let's go with this. Oh, not that one. Let's go with CouchDB first. All right. There is a database called CouchDB. It's been around since 2005-ish. Still exists.
Bing, bada, boom.
The JK, thank you for the follow. I appreciate that. Thanks for stopping in. CouchDB still exists. It's in version 2.0 or maybe 3.0, something like that. There's also a caching tool out there called memcached. This also still exists. But both of these open source projects, they had companies form around them to support them. The CouchDB company was called Couch1, and the memcached company was called Membase. And they actually started working on a distributed database built on the memcached protocol. So, this next, yeah, so Couch1 is the company formed around CouchDB, and then Membase formed around memcached. Now, these companies merged, and they created a brand new product, which was called, so, and they took the Couch from Couch1 and the base from Membase, and then created a new company and a new product called Couchbase Server, and the company's name is Couchbase. And so Couchbase version 1.0 is basically CouchDB and memcached put together. So you had a NoSQL database, key value based NoSQL database storing JSON, with a memory first architecture and built-in cache, which is the memcached part. And you had those in one package together. And that was Couchbase version 1. Now, since then, by the way, the Couchbase version 1, I think the API more closely resembled or was exactly the same as the memcached API. It's not the same API as CouchDB. So CouchDB was kind of, at that point, just kind of the on-disk storage for the database. That was Couchbase version 1. We're at Couchbase almost version 6.5. It will be out soon. So Couchbase and CouchDB, they don't have much in common anymore. There's still some parts of CouchDB, like heavily forked and modified in Couchbase Server, but for the most part, everything in Couchbase is very different from those early days. And so they have the same name, similar names, right? They both have couch in them, so that's why there's lots of confusion about the names, but they're not the same thing. They're both NoSQL databases. They both have couch in the name. That's about all they have in common. Couchbase still supports the memcached API, I believe, but more for backwards compatibility reasons. Okay, so let me actually bring us up here so you can see if I'm going into Couchbase and I add a new bucket. A bucket is a collection of data. You can see memcached is actually one of the options there, but the default bucket type is Couchbase. And if I was going into views, if I wanted to add a development view or a spatial view, something like that, those are all using MapReduce, and that, I think that engine still is built with CouchDB. But that's about it. All right, the other question: how's Couchbase different than Mongo? So, two main things. One is, I like to divide it into two categories: architecture, which is sort of the core of each of these products, and that's something that doesn't change very easily or change very often. You know, you build on an architecture, and it's very difficult to go back and change those decisions. The other one is features. The features, they change a lot more often, right? So Mongo may add new features, Couchbase may add new features, and you know, that's just sort of the features arms race, right? But architecture is something that is sort of the fundamental difference between the two. So Couchbase has memory first. Like I said, it has memcached, which it's just in its DNA, right? Memcached on top of CouchDB was the original version. So it's memory first architecture. Everything goes through memory. So it makes it, you know, that's how Couchbase gets really good performance. Master-master architecture is a significant difference. So with Mongo, I'm not much of an expert on Mongo. I know I've done a little bit of Mongo work just to sort of get used to it and try to answer these type of questions. But the way you do scaling in Mongo, when you want to scale out beyond one machine, you do what's called like a master-slave or a primary-secondary architecture, where you have one node that's sort of the primary node, the primary machine, and all the reads, all the writes go into that machine. And then you have some secondary machines that are read-only, and they get copies from the primary machine, the master, but they are read-only. You can only read from them. Replica sets, is that what Mongo calls them? The sort of secondary ones, replica sets. Yeah. Now, the Couchbase works differently, though, in that every node in Couchbase can do reads and writes. So the data is sharded up in Couchbase automatically. Sharding is just splitting the data up into different pieces automatically. And there's 1,024 shards in Couchbase. but that's the default number of shards. And by default, I mean that's the number of shards. You can't really change that. 1024. And those 1024 shards get split up amongst all the different machines in the cluster. So if you have 2 machines in your cluster, you have 512 shards on each machine. And so a document may live in shard on one machine or on the other machine, but it's either one it lives on. It's the main copy of the document. It gets can be written to and read from. Little trivia: do you know which game coined the term shard in this context? Which game coined the term shard? Interesting. I didn't know it was a game. Ultima Online. Interesting. Was that something that they, like the developers of Ultima Online, coined it? Or is it something actually in the game itself? Anyway, they ran a scalability and created an in-lore situation. Oh, okay. So like the world is sharded, like parallel universes sort of thing. Very interesting. Anyway, so with Couchbase, yeah, there's still sharding. It's automatic sharding, though. You don't have to set up shards or anything like that. It's just automatically shards the data between each node. And when you interact with Couchbase SDK, it knows which document or which shard your document lives on, so it can go directly to the correct node to do the reading and writing. In terms of that's like the main architectural difference. So with the master, also called shared nothing architecture or masterless architecture, it means when you scale up, you can do so linearly, much more linearly, because you don't have sort of a bottleneck, or if the primary node goes down, you don't have to worry about appointing a new leader to handle those incoming writes, etc. So the other thing is features. Ultima Online was a fantastic game. I used to host my own server back in the day and code all kinds of custom crap in it. I never played Ultima Online. Yeah, there was like the whole Ultima Online. There was EverQuest. Was it EverQuest? And then of course World of Warcraft. I never got into any of those really. The closest I ever got to one of those games was, if you remember, back in the day with the early days of the internet and like Telnet, there would be like MUDs and mushes. I would play in a couple of those. That's the closest I ever got to any of those massively multi-online RPG type games. Yeah, I think I do remember playing RuneScape a little bit, but I didn't like it that much. Anyway, features is the other one, and this is the cool stuff that developers are really interested in. I think the architecture stuff is great for the ops and the DevOps, and you're worrying about scaling and you're solving business problems and doing backups and all that kind of stuff. Right? That's important. But the features, that's the cool stuff that the developers like. Canis Lupus Blanco. Hope I'm saying that right. Thank you very much for the follow. I appreciate it. The thing I love about Couchbase that really got me pumped up about Couchbase when I first started was that it's a NoSQL database, right? Your data is stored as JSON, and it's sharded, it's distributed. But you can write SQL. And that's what I've been doing for this leaderboard, actually. We're putting all your chat data as you talk into a Couchbase database, which I can then query with a SQL query. This is a very simple query that just finds the top chatters in my channel since I've been recording this, and Calvin A. Allen is the top here, 104 messages. But I'm storing all this data. It's just JSON data, but I'm able to query it with SQL, with the SQL that I've been using my whole career, like everything, joins and unions and insert, update, delete, and merges and everything, like a full SQL implementation. And so that's something that Couchbase has that I don't think any other NoSQL database even comes close. Cosmos has a SQL query language. It's pretty limited compared to, your SQL Server, Postgres, MySQL type of language. Couchbase also has a full-text search engine built in, which is pretty cool. And I think I actually might have tried this already. Yeah, I did one here. I created one for the actual text of your chat message. So if I look for crap, for instance, I can see that we've got 2 messages with crap in them. So one is, this is a message from, says tons of legacy crap and options for how each era implemented things, right? And then here's one, this is probably Calvin's message that says, yeah, Ultimate Online was a fantastic game. All kinds of custom crap. So this is a text search engine. CM Griffin G. Neo4j's query language is pretty cool though. Yes, Neo4j's query language, it kind of feels a little bit like SQL, but it's definitely not SQL. It's a graph graph database, right? So it's really optimized for those graph types of queries. So I mean, you're not going to see a select and join and things like that. But it's going to feel very similar to that, where it's very declarative. Anyway, where was I? Oh yeah, full text search. So with this full text search, it's built into Couchbase. So kind of think of this kind of like Elasticsearch, kind of like a lightweight Elasticsearch, but it's in your database here. You don't have to do an ETL to move data from Couchbase to something else. You can do the search right here. You can create the index right here in Couchbase, which is pretty darn cool. I'm not going to make the claim that it is nearly as powerful, as all-inclusive as Elasticsearch's capabilities. But if you're just doing relatively basic, like I'm searching through a product catalog for keywords, this is totally fine. And you don't have to have an ETL for it. All right, and analytics. Again, no ETL needed for this. So analytics data, you typically set up an ETL to dump all your data on a nightly basis or whatever to some other database for analysis, trend analysis or recommendations or really expensive, complicated queries. What we have in Couchbase is you can just have another analytics service running that makes a shadow copy of data that you can run those really complicated queries through without affecting your operational workload. So this is workload isolation. This is more ops stuff that people care about. But developers, what they care about for this is that if I have analytics data, and I think I do have some here, I call it travel. This is a shadow copy of the travel bucket. I can access this data again with SQL. So it's a slightly different dialect of SQL. Right now, they're like 90% the same. But this is how I can run really expensive, complicated SQL queries against this data. And I don't have to create indexes. I can, but I don't have to. And it doesn't affect the operational workload. So it's not going to, if I have an expensive, slow query, it's not going to impact my customers that are still using the data directly and reading and writing from it directly. And it gets updated automatically in real time. So it's not a nightly ETL. It's sort of a automatic built-in ETL that runs every time there's a mutation. So, all right, that's my booth spiel. Thank you for coming to the Couchbase booth here at the whatever event we're at. But those are the questions I get asked all the time. And this one about how tall I am. I get asked this a lot because in person, if you never met me in person, you wouldn't know this, but I'm actually very tall. I'm 6'6". So people come up to me and they ask me these questions all the time. How tall are you? I go in an elevator somewhere and someone else gets in the elevator. Oh, wow, you sure are tall. Yeah. I've heard that. How tall are you? Oh, I'm 6'6". Oh, I've got a cousin or a nephew or whatever who's 6 foot whatever. He plays basketball. Do you play basketball? No, I don't play basketball. You have to actually be good and coordinated at sports to play basketball, and I'm not. I have the opposite problem. People see me stream and think I'm tall. I'm not. Interesting. Do you stream standing up? Is there something about your stream that makes people think you're tall? Yeah, I don't know. Okay, well, so anyway, that's my. I didn't really mean to go into my developer advocate spiel today, but hey, you asked, so I'm always happy to talk about Couchbase any old time. But yeah, those are the things. And Couchbase, by the way, free download if you want to give it a try. Should be, if you're looking at the website down below, there's some links. Enterprise Edition is what I'm using. It's you have to buy a license to go into production with it, but if you just want to play with all the features, totally free download. There's no limit on it. There's no time limit. Just download it, check it out. Tell me what you think. Next time you come join the stream, if you have questions about it or anything at all, comments about it, like, hey, I downloaded a Couchbase and this thing was really terrible. I want to know that stuff too, because it's part of my job is to give feedback and represent the developers, represent you within Couchbase. So I love to hear that kind of stuff. I love to hear any of your feedback about it. And from time to time, I post tutorial content here and there about Couchbase. I love to hear your feedback on my tutorial content. Like, did I do a good job of explaining this? The documentation was lacking. I love to hear that kind of stuff. So, yeah, great. I really do like talking about that. Although I will say, I was at KubeCon. I talked about this early in the show. I was at KubeCon last week. This was a 3-day event, so I'm at a booth 3 days answering these types of questions for 8+ hours every day. The last day was short, fortunately, but answering these same questions every day. And, I love working the booth. I love talking to developers. I love answering these questions. I love asking them about their projects, what they're working on, how Couchbase could help, how Couchbase might be a good fit, how maybe it might not be a good fit, that sort of thing. I love those conversations. But I got to say, this happens every event, especially the longer ones, the three days, is that about halfway through the third day, I start to hate myself, Couchbase, and just coding in general, because I'm just like, I can't stand hearing myself answering the same question again for the 400th time this week. So fortunately, most events don't go longer than 3 days, because towards the end of that third day, I'm like, I'm just going to give up programming and go be Amish. But fortunately, I had a nice long weekend break since that conference, so I'm super happy that you asked this question. I was able to answer and help you out. And I think we're going to wrap up here real soon here. But by the way, that's sort of the one of the themes of my Twitch channel here, is that the only stupid question is the one you don't ask. So anytime you have a question about what's going on, what I'm doing, anything that looks out of the ordinary or strange, or you're not familiar with, ask the question, because I am absolutely happy to answer any sort of question, no matter how simple or complicated you think it might be. I'm always up for trying to answer questions or helping find someone who can answer the question if that person is not me. All right, so I think I'm going to wrap up here. I got a test written. That was pretty good. I came to some more understanding about what's going on with Cosmos DB's provider and how I'm going to approach some of the changes I've got to make it compatible with Couchbase. So that's some good things. What I want to do now is maybe I'll try this raid thing. Who else is streaming right now on Team Live Coders that we can go raid? Maybe we can see how this works. C# Fritz. Okay, maybe we can go raid C# Fritz. Wouldn't that be ideal? How do we actually do this? Can I do this from Streamlabs, or do I have to do it from the actual Twitch website? So I think Calvin said you just do /raid/channel name. So channel name would be C# Fritz. He says, yep, okay, well, let's try it. Let's go raid C# Fritz and see what happens. I think this will be fun. I don't know how what's gonna happen next. So anyway, thank you everyone for joining the chat today, joining the stream. I really appreciate it. Some great questions. Got a little bit of work done, and it was a lot of fun. So we're gonna go raid C# Fritz now and see how this works. All right. One viewer is ready. Okay. Oh, okay. Ready to raid C# Fritz in 1 second. Raid now.
Defense, absolutely. Oh my goodness. We're getting a raid. Look at that. Thank you, Matthew D. Groves. I appreciate that. Matt's another one of the developers on the Live Coders team. You can find out more about Live Coders if you check the link just below here. It's a group of about 45 developers that are broadcasting, writing code live here on Twitch, answering questions, and building some neat and thoughtful projects that you might be interested in. Wonders. So good to see you. Look at all the gritty. Absolutely. We shall defend the channel. Thank you so much for that raid. Yeah. You can defend the channel with !defend, and we'll get the no gritties popping out there. You want that gritty sauce you saw on Twitter? That's from Dietz and Watson, local company here in the Philadelphia area. They also had bottles of Wooder. Not water, Wooder. It's a Philly thing. Excuse me.
All right. Well, I think that's it for me today. I'm going to end my stream. I hope that doesn't break the raid. But thank you very much for joining me. Check out C# Fritz. Have a good one.